Welcome into Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Meghan Payton. Guys, the Seahawks season has officially been called over. They are eliminated from the playoffs. But here at Seahawks Today, we are not going to keep talking Seahawks. There's a lot to look forward to in 2022 and a lot to talk about. So if you have not already, now is the time. If you're a true Seahawks fan, subscribe to our channel. Go to youtube.com/Seahawks TV or click that big red button. So, of course, we are going to recap this Bears game that ended in a heartbreaking loss. I guess it felt a little bit better knowing that the stakes weren't that high because the Seahawks playoff chances were essentially over before this game started. But they are now officially eliminated with this loss. Bears win 25-24. The Bears decide to go for the 2-point conversion. I mean, they have nothing to lose, so why not? Matt Nagy's on the hot seat. They are definitely going to call a more aggressive game. We saw that. The 2-point conversion works out in the Bears' favor. Then, of course, the Seahawks end up losing this game. So we are going to touch on this game a little bit, but we're also going to look bigger picture because the Seahawks now are officially out of the playoffs for the 2021 season. So we've got to talk big picture here. We've got to talk rebuilding year. We've got to talk Russell Wilson. All of that's to come. But unfortunately, Seahawks will not be playing. And I guess they will be playing January with the pushed back schedule. But the Seahawks are not going to be here in the playoffs. As you can look at this playoff picture, they are not even in the others category now that they are eliminated. So before we get into this Bears game, I just want to stick on the overall theme of this season. What is your one-word reaction, Seahawks fans, to this 2021 season? This is our pinned comment. Make sure you go get your votes in if you get the ad break right here. I'm going to say that this season was unrecognizable. This is not Seattle. This is not what we are used to seeing, especially with Russell Wilson, especially with Pete Carroll. And I know that you guys are probably frustrated with both of them right now, but this is just unlike a Seahawks team that we've seen in recent years, at least. Maybe if you guys have been fans for decades, you might be used to this, but I'd say major change is coming because the Seahawks can't go about this the way they did this year. I don't think that this plan is going to work. Something has to happen. Now, I understand Russell Wilson, not fully healthy, maybe still not mentally back from the injury. Pete Carroll, 70 years old. He's been a successful coach in this league, but maybe the time is up. I think that there's a lot of questions that the Seahawks organization is going to have to ask, and they are going to have to come down and come up with a conclusion of what they think's best. Now, when we talk major change, obviously the two people we think about are head coach Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. We did a segment on this on Seahawks Today. We'll make sure to throw it in the description about which guy you'd rather have back in Seattle next year. That's a big topic that I'm sure we will continue to talk about as we get into the offseason. But I'd say someone's got to go, and it's either going to be Russell Wilson or Pete Carroll. Maybe they both end up staying, but I think if they want to see major change, we are going to need to see some major change in Seattle. So, of course, as we look ahead to the offseason, we are going to talk more big picture. But let's for now stick on this Seahawks versus Bears game. And we are going to put the blame on one guy or multiple guys. Who do you blame for Seattle's loss week 16 against the Bears? I'm blaming the defense. And I know that's not one person. And honestly, the Seahawks defense hasn't been terrible as far as compared to the offense, maybe. Now, of course, they are ranked very low. They're like 27th in the league. But I was wanting to see a bit more from them against this Bears offense because, honestly, this offense is struggling. You've got Nick Foles in at quarterback, and they couldn't shut him down. Nick Foles was 24 out of 35 attempts, 250 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Now, I'm going to keep the blame going because I think that there is a lot to go around. I'm going to blame a little bit on Pete Carroll because the clock management was an issue. I mean, if you remember back in the first half, we were all wondering, why didn't Pete Carroll call a timeout? They let the clock run down to the punt. I think that that was kind of questionable. And, you know, we've seen some of that happen with Pete Carroll. Now, maybe I will always be the first to say, maybe there's something we're not thinking about. Maybe Pete Carroll is outsmarting all of us. He's definitely been in this league a lot longer than any of us fans have been. But I do say that that was a little bit questionable. Also, that challenge that they had late in the game. That affected them. They didn't have a timeout. Now, if they would have had that timeout late in the fourth quarter, that could have changed maybe the outcome of this game after the Bears got that 2-point conversion. So I do want to put some blame on Pete Carroll because the clock management side of a game is very important. And I don't necessarily think that was an A+ today. Again, we put him on the list the other week, but Jason Myers, you've got to make those field goals. Now, I understand the Russell Wilson sack. It doesn't put your kicker in a great situation, but Jason Myers should be making those field goals that are under 40 yards. Those should be gimmies to him. He's a really good kicker. We talked about him, just how he's been on this Seahawks team. He was 100% completions of field goals last year. This year, he struggled a bit. And so I'd say that he absolutely needs to step up. These are all things that, of course, as we get into the offseason, we're going to look individually at each guy, what they've done. It doesn't matter what they did 2 years ago. It doesn't matter what they did last year. How did they look this season? Were the mistakes that they made, was that on them? Was it on someone else? But Jason Myers should make those kicks. Now, if you guys are feeling like wanting to remember a better time in Seattle, this is why today's sponsor is going to be about Seahawks Throwback gear, because let's throw it back to a better time for Seahawks fans. If you guys go to chatsports.com/Seahawks gear, you can get some awesome Seahawks throwback stuff. You've got the cool beanies. I love this button-up shirt. It's very cool, guys. These are perfect gifts if you forgot about Christmas, or, if you didn't get what you wanted for Christmas, go, celebrate yourself. Go to chatsports.com/Seahawks gear. They're up to 50% off. This sale will be ending soon. Most of these people kind of take them off before the new year. So if you do want this awesome Seahawks stuff, now's the time to check it out. Get your stuff for next season. It might be over this year, but there's plenty of Seahawks stuff to talk about, and we are going to keep talking about it here at Chat Sports. I promise we'll keep you guys updated all season long. But we are going to talk about Russell Wilson's performance, because I'd say it was not great. Again, still missing, a little bit inaccurate and not being able to connect with DK as much as we'd like. He was 16 out of 27 attempts, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but a QB rating of 104.1. Now, I do think that these stats are a little bit misleading. I'd say that Russ showed a little improvement, but it still wasn't fantastic. Russell Wilson has struggled since returning from his finger injury to connect with his top receivers. DK Metcalf showing a lot of frustration last week. We saw that during the Rams game. He was beating out Jalen Ramsey, yet Russell Wilson could not connect with him. There were a couple passes in today's game that were underthrown to DK, and there were a couple that were just over his head, inaccurate, not looking like Russell Wilson that we know and love, but he did show a bit improvement. Now, for the first time since returning from his injury, Russell Wilson admits that he was maybe not 100%. He was asked during a press conference, was he 100%? And his response was definitely not. But at the same time, you go out there and learn as much as you can, play as hard as you can, and try and help us win. But unfortunately, it didn't go that way. So now we're hearing that Russell Wilson has admitted, which we all knew, that he was not 100%. There's no way that you can come back from an injury like that quickly and be 100%. We knew it. He finally admits it. So now I ask you guys this. Did Russ ruin the Seahawks season? Now, hear me out when I ask this question. I mean, did Russ hurt his team by coming back too early, not giving them the best chance at the playoffs? This is a topic that, of course, is an unknown. Would Geno Smith been able to do better? I don't know, but this is the question I'm asking you guys today. Type Y for yes if you think Russell Wilson ruined the Seahawks season, or type N for no if it's someone else's fault. I think that Russell Wilson's going to get back to being Russ. I've said this before. I'm not really that concerned about Russell Wilson. So, of course, as we start talking about major change happening in Seattle, I don't think it would be a positive thing for them to lose Russell Wilson. Like, I get it, guys, but you cannot look at a player who returns from an injury for the first time in his career, by the way. He struggles for a few games. He's not perfect. And say, all right, now we don't want this star quarterback that's one of the most dominant guys in the NFL at our team. That's just, in my mind, ridiculous. Of course, trade rumors are going to come up, but I'm going to stick by it would be a loss for Seattle if they did lose Russell Wilson. Now, the next question is, would it be a loss for them to get rid of Rashaad Penny? Rashaad Penny, who, had his breakout game against the Texans, had another really good game today. 17 carries, 135 yards, an average of 7.9 and 1 touchdown. Now, Rashaad Penny, a guy who does often get injured, a guy that we didn't see much out of. If you would have asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have said, Rashaad Penny, do not re-sign him after this year. He becomes a free agent after this season, so the Seahawks will be left with a choice of whether or not they want to re-sign him. Maybe he wants to go somewhere else, or maybe the Seahawks just decide to move on from him. But now with the performance that we are seeing from Penny, is it maybe a good idea to re-sign him? I think that we're all starting to rethink our initial thoughts about Penny. So I'm asking you guys this question. Should the Seahawks bring him back in 2022? Type R for re-sign or type W for let him walk. We're going to move on to the defensive side of things in this game because I do think that they struggled. Like I said, I blame a lot on them for this loss. I think the missed tackles were a problem in this game because this Bears offense isn't phenomenal. Like, I understand you've got to go up against guys like Montgomery, who's a great running back in this league, but Nick Foles is your quarterback. I'm not trying to sit here and dog on Nick Foles, but Nick Foles is their third string quarterback, and he was looking like a first string quarterback up against the Seahawks defense. They allowed 317 yards in today's game, 229 passing yards, 88 rushing yards, and they were 8 out of 17 on third and fourth down conversions, which actually is not a lot. They went for it, I think, 3 times on fourth down, and they only got one of them. So there were aspects of this defense that looked good. I'd say Bobby Wagner, he looked fantastic, and congratulations. We're going to talk Pro Bowl here in a second, but Bobby Wagner had 12 tackles in this game. He officially broke his own franchise record for the most tackles in a single season. So congrats to Bobby Wagner, not only on today's game, but congratulations to him and Quandre Diggs for officially being named the starters of 2022 Pro Bowl. Go to the comments right now and type congrats if you want to go give a shout out to them in the comments. All right, guys, just to recap here, Seahawks fall short to the Bears because of a 2-point conversion by Chicago. They lose 25-24. The Seahawks are officially eliminated from the playoffs. We will have more news, of course, talking draft, talking trade. Do not leave Seahawks Today because we are going to keep keeping you up with Seahawks content.